Good evening and welcome to Monday Motivation. My name is Jabu Zwane, a mindset development specialist, and we'll be talking tonight about a topic that makes up a lot of the boardroom discussions. And of course, in many different seminars and events, this is a topic that normally comes to the top. What is the topic, you ask? The topic is leadership versus management. Is there a difference between leadership and management? Well, let me ask you a few questions this evening, and perhaps as you're listening, you can write these words down and try to figure out whether they fall under leadership or under management. And then at the end of my talk today, hopefully then you'll see whether or not it aligns with what I would have shared. When you hear tasks, when you hear operation, when you hear inspiration, when you hear relationship, when you hear influence, when you hear laws, when you hear mission, vision, which one falls under leadership and which one falls under management? Now, let's start doing a little bit of comparison here, but I'm going to start off with a little bit of a story here. I shared quite some weeks back about my manager that was incredibly good at sales. And because he was really this shining light and this star of a salesperson, the company decided that they're going to promote him to becoming a manager. And after about maybe a year of being a manager, he decided to go back to the floor. And one of the reasons why he did that is because as a manager, he didn't feel as comfortable, and it didn't seem to translate into the kind of results that he wanted. And immediately when he went back into being a salesperson again, within that very same month, he was at the top again. That story kind of gives us a little bit of an insight in terms of understanding what is the difference between a manager and a leader. Management necessarily speaks to what needs to be managed. Tasks, operations, specific targets that need to be reached, resources that are part of that operation, and the order. In other words, if you think in management, you must think about different components that have got to work together specifically to achieve a specific goals. On the other hand, leadership focuses, yes, of course, on the overseeing those resources, but specifically it's relational. It has more to do with people and what people need to become, the qualities that they need to possess to reach, crucially, potential. So if you think in management, management is about reaching the specific key performance areas or key performance targets, whilst on the other hand, leadership focuses on how to develop people to achieve their maximum potential whilst they are achieving those very same KPIs. Because ultimately, it is absolutely no use at all to be helping somebody to reach their potential if their potential does not line up with the key performance areas or indicators to ensure that as a business, you are reaching your goals, you're becoming profitable. Because every business ultimately, what makes it successful is the fact that the business is achieving profitability. Or if it's an organization, it is to ensure that the specific targets, the purpose for which the business is in existence or the organization is in existence, achieves those goals, even if it's an NPO. And so that's what I want us to look at. I want us to start comparing a little bit to see, for you as a person at home right now, are you more of a manager and more of a leader? And for that, I'm going to make comparison to a table or framework that I shared quite a while back, a couple of weeks back, about science and about art. So on the one side, you have specifics which you are able to measure, which are also time-bound, which are controllable, and also which are predictable. Science, as we've spoken about it, is not so much a subject as it is more a reality of how things are in life. It's about the laws, it's about the processes, it is about the actual activities that follow one after another to lead to a specific outcome. A river follows a certain science. A tree planted into the ground follows certain science as it grows. There are specific activities that need to happen in order for it to grow. On the other hand, when you're speaking about the art, the degree to which that tree is going to go, the amount of fruit that tree is going to yield at the end of the harvest, is directly connected to, for example, where the tree is growing, which environment it is growing. So there's a specific art which then is not easily measurable. But what we want to do is that we want to create the best environment for that tree to yield the best amount of fruit as it possibly can. We may have minimum requirements, but on the other hand, the management, for example, will then have maximum requirement. But a leader doesn't look at a tree and thinks, okay, this tree has got to, produce 1,000 fruits. A leader thinks, I wonder, if I created the best environment for the tree, how many fruits? Is it going to be 1,000? Is it going to be 10,000? Is it going to be 1,000,000? Because potential is what a leader is focusing on. Here are some comparisons. When it comes to relationships, a manager focuses on the specific technical skills that a person has to have to achieve specific targets. So here comes Jabu Zwane, and then they say, okay, dude, we want you to be a salesperson. There will be a listed specific skills there that I've got to have. And then on top of that, for me to keep my job, there will be specific targets that I've got to meet as minimum requirements. And how I get to do that, it is not really a job of a manager to get me up to standard. As a matter of fact, a manager wants to hire you being ready-made. On the other hand, a leader would look at you and say, okay, great. If I'm going to be helping, if I'm going to be your leader, I need to know what is your potential. How far can you go? Yes, you need to have the specific skills. I'll be more concerned on how I can cultivate those skills within you and you operating at your optimal level. I always think about it in this way. A manager would look at a person that is achieving targets and then leave them alone. A leader would look at the same person that is achieving targets and wonder whether or not that person is operating at their maximum potential or if they're operating below their potential. I remember having this discussion with my son at one point. And he said to me, you know what, Daddy, I came up the top 5. And I was like, fantastic, man, that's amazing. And he told me and gave me his average, like, that's incredible, that's amazing. But I have a question for you, boy. Tell me something. Is that your best? And then he looked at me and he smiled. He said to me, no, Daddy, it is not. And I said, what do you think would have happened if you had done your best? If you had done what you needed to do, if you had studied when you had time, saying that's what a leader does. A leader is concerned more about the fact that maybe you could have been number 1, who knows? And the question there is not asked in a sense of, I want you to be better than other kids. But the question specifically was, are you the best version of yourself? So on the one side, the manager is quite satisfied with the fact that a person is meeting the minimum requirements because it ticks the box. Because remember, management follows the framework of science. It follows the framework of specifics. And if those specifics are being met, you leave me alone. And this is where actually then the management has an issue. Remember we spoke about the whole thing of quiet quitting. So the guys who are withdrawing themselves from the company, for example, would just ensure that they meet the minimum managerial requirements as it is prescribed in their job description. And so they would not necessarily go further than that as long as they're meeting the minimum requirement. And it may look out on the outside as if everything is functioning. Whereas on the other hand, when you have a leader is going to be concerned about the fact that why has this person began to withdraw themselves? Why are they beginning to not give what, in their own estimation, based on the history, the best of themselves? And then in inquiring, then they'll think of ways to inspire and to motivate. I sometimes also think of management and leadership in this way: mentorship versus coaching. See, when somebody's mentoring you, there are certain things that you've got to do, and it is your job to follow up with the mentor, to tell the mentor what you have done, and the mentor will give you maybe a little bit of guidance and to achieve specifically in the area that they're mentoring you in. So a mentor, for example, you're not going to go to somebody who's a soccer player, right? And who's good at playing soccer, and then you want them to mentor you, but you are an IT specialist. That's not how it works. On the other hand, a coach can coach anybody pretty much from any environment because it is about the individual. The rules of high performance are pretty much the same for every human being. And so the coach will focus on what transformation do you need to go through to achieve the best that you ever can in whatever area of discipline you may find yourself in. So there's mentorship and then there's coaching. And so this is why the main distinctive factor between a leader and a manager is the issue of relationships. John Maxwell, who's regarded as one of the greatest leaders that ever lived, and he's written over 50 different books on leadership specifically. He says that leadership is nothing but influence, and influence itself requires necessarily that you develop incredible relationships with people, because that is the leverage that you're going to require in situations where the prescribed minimum is not sufficient. And in a world of today, where there's constant volatility, where there's uncertainty, where there's constant change, we require and we need to achieve more than the bare minimum to survive the current changes. With what's happening right now with AI, leadership is what can help us to imagine and to have a vision beyond what is currently required. So hopefully what you've learned today is that management, more science, leadership is more of an art. To be able to find a symmetry between the two, that is ultimately the objective. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. Hopefully you've learned something that you can be able to use on your day-to-day, and hopefully even to figure out whether you're a manager or whether you're a leader. Have a great evening and enjoy the rest of your programming. My name is Jabu Zwane.